Irish elk. It wasn't actually an elk. It was closer to a giant deer, and it carried one of the most extreme evolutionary features ever seen on land. The antlers stretched up to 3.5 meters across and weighed over 40 kilograms. That's heavier than most dogs, attached directly to the skull. These antlers didn't evolve for survival. They evolved for display. Males used them to compete with other males and attract females. Bigger antlers meant better genes. At least, that's how the system worked at the time. But then the environment changed. Forests started replacing open grasslands. And suddenly, those massive antlers weren't an advantage anymore. They became a liability. Moving through dense trees with a structure that wide isn't efficient. It slows you down. It makes escape harder. It drains energy. The same feature that once guaranteed reproduction started reducing survival. And the species didn't adapt fast enough. The Irish elk went extinct around 7,000 years ago. Not because it wasn't strong, not because it couldn't compete, but because it evolved for a world that no longer existed. Saber-toothed cats. When people think of them, they imagine oversized fangs, long enough to extend past the jaw. In some species, those teeth reached up to 20 centimeters. They weren't for chewing. They were precision weapons. These cats specialized in hunting large, slow-moving megafauna. Animals like giant sloths, mammoths, and bison. The strategy was simple. Take down something massive. Use those elongated teeth to deliver a deep, targeted bite to soft tissue. It worked perfectly, until those animals disappeared. At the end of the last ice age, most of the megafauna went extinct. Whether it was climate change, human hunting, or both, the result was the same. The prey was gone, and the saber-tooth was left with a problem. Those teeth were fragile. They weren't built for fighting smaller, faster animals. A broken tooth meant death. No backup plan, no versatility. So the specialization that once made them dominant predators became a weakness. They didn't lose because they were weak. They lost because they were too specific. Panda. At first glance, it looks harmless. Slow, calm, almost designed to be peaceful. But its entire biology tells a different story. Pandas are classified as carnivores. Their digestive system is built for meat. Short intestines, no specialized fermentation chambers. Everything about their gut says predator. But they don't eat meat. They eat bamboo, a plant that's low in nutrients, difficult to digest, and offers almost no energy. So the panda spends up to 14 hours a day eating. Not because it wants to, because it has to. It consumes around 12 to 38 kilograms of bamboo daily just to survive. This wasn't always the case. Pandas likely evolved this diet during a time when competition for meat was high. Bamboo was abundant and untouched. It gave them a niche. But that niche came with a cost. Now they're locked into a food source that barely sustains them. If bamboo forests disappear, they don't have the digestive system to switch back. They evolved for a solution that made sense in the past. Now it tracks them. Peacocks. The tail is one of the most recognizable features in nature. Bright colors, massive span, covered in eye-like patterns. It's also one of the most impractical structures any animal carries. The tail doesn't help with survival. It doesn't make the bird faster. It doesn't help it hide. It does the opposite. It makes it easier to spot, harder to escape, more energy-intensive to maintain. So why does it exist? Because of sexual selection. Females preferred larger, more elaborate tails. Over time, males with bigger displays reproduced more. The trait amplified. But here's the problem. That preference evolved in a context where predation pressure was manageable, where display could exist alongside survival. Change the environment, increase the number of predators, and suddenly the same trait becomes dangerous. The peacock is still here, but the logic behind its evolution belongs to a different balance of forces. It's carrying a signal from the past. Horseshoe crab. This animal has existed for over 450 million years, longer than trees, longer than most ecosystems we know today. It hasn't changed much. That's usually seen as a success story. Evolution found a design that works, and it kept it. Horseshoe crabs rely on very specific environmental conditions, shallow coastal waters, particular breeding cycles tied to lunar phases. For millions of years, that system was stable. Now it isn't. Human activity, coastal development, and climate shifts are disrupting those patterns. The crab isn't failing because it's weak. It's failing because it's optimized for a world that stayed the same for too long. And now, that world is gone. Koala.
Nom nom nom.
Another specialist. It feeds almost exclusively on eucalyptus leaves, leaves that are toxic, low in nutrients, and difficult to process. To handle this, koalas evolved a slow metabolism, one of the slowest among mammals. They sleep up to 20 hours a day to conserve energy. It works, as long as eucalyptus forests are stable. But here's the issue. They're so specialized that they can't easily switch food sources. Even when alternative plants are available, they don't recognize them as food. In some cases, a koala placed in a room full of edible leaves will starve because they aren't arranged like branches. The behavior is locked. The adaptation solved a problem in the past. Avoid competition. Eat something others can't. But now, it limits survival. Moose. Massive animals, up to 700 kilograms, built for cold environments. Long legs for moving through snow. Thick fur for insulation. Large bodies to retain heat. Everything about them is designed for harsh winters. But winters are changing. In warmer climates, that same insulation becomes a problem. Heat stress increases. Parasites that once died in the cold now survive. Ticks, in particular, have become a major threat. Moose can carry tens of thousands of ticks. Blood loss, infection, and energy drain weaken them over time. The very features that once protected them now make them vulnerable. They evolved for cold. The cold is disappearing. Flightless birds. Ostriches, emus, kiwis. Flight was lost because it wasn't needed. In environments with few predators, flying is expensive. It requires energy, muscle, and constant maintenance. So evolution removed it. Ground living was efficient, safe, until new predators arrived. In places like New Zealand, birds evolved without mammalian predators. No need to fly. Then humans introduced cats, rats, and dogs. And suddenly, the environment changed faster than evolution could respond. These birds didn't lose because they were weak. They lost because their adaptations were built for a safer world. Anglerfish. The deep-sea version of specialization taken to an extreme. The male is tiny, almost insignificant compared to the female. Its only purpose is to find a female. Once it does, it bites onto her body and fuses. Over time, it loses its eyes, its organs, everything except the parts needed to produce sperm. It becomes a permanent attachment. This evolved because encounters in the deep sea are rare. Finding a mate once might be the only chance. So the system guarantees reproduction, but it's built entirely around scarcity. If conditions change, if density increases, or if mobility becomes more important, this system doesn't adapt easily. It's a solution designed for a very specific problem. Cheetah. The fastest land animal. Built entirely around speed. Lightweight frame, flexible spine, long limbs, enlarged nasal passages for oxygen intake. It can reach speeds of up to 100 kilometers per hour, but only for short bursts, and that's the issue. Cheetahs evolved to chase fast prey in open environments, antelope, gazelles, high-speed pursuit. But speed comes at a cost. They lack strength. They can't defend their kills. Larger predators like lions and hyenas often steal their food. So even after a successful hunt, they might not eat. They also have low genetic diversity, making them more vulnerable to disease. They're optimized for one strategy, and when that strategy fails, they don't have many alternatives. So when you look at all of these, you start to notice something. Evolution doesn't plan ahead. It doesn't predict the future. It solves problems in the present, and sometimes those solutions outlive the problems they were meant to solve. The Irish elk didn't fail because it was weak. The saber-tooth didn't fail because it couldn't hunt. The panda didn't fail because it can't eat. They evolved perfectly for a world that moved on. And once that world changes, the same traits that guaranteed success become the reason for decline. Nature doesn't update old designs, it replaces them, and if the change happens too fast, there's no time to adapt. That's the risk of specialization. It works incredibly well until it doesn't, and when it stops working, there's no backup plan because evolution never needed one. If you made it this far, you'll like what's coming next. Consider subscribing.